Before there was Egypt and before there was Mesopotamia, there was this. And no, it's not the cradle of civilization in Africa, it's here in South Asia. The Indus Valley Civilization, home to some of the world's first cities, is one of history's greatest mysteries. In 1921, a British archaeologist named John Marshall discovered the remains of two great cities in what is today Pakistan. The larger of the two was called Mohenjo-daro, and the smaller was called Harappa. Together, they were the crown jewels of the Indus Valley Civilization. Now, we don't know exactly when the civilization began, because its cities were never all that far from some of the earliest settlements in South Asia, such as those at Mehrgarh and the Balochistan. But archaeologists believe that the civilization began taking shape around 3300 BCE after the last ice age ended and people began to settle down in the fertile valleys of the Indus River. At its peak, between 2600 and 1900 BCE, it covered much of what today is Pakistan and parts of northwest India. Its urban centers were laid out with incredible care and precision. They were each divided into two halves, a residential area and a commercial area with large public works projects, such as granaries and warehouses in between. They developed an advanced system of pipes and drains, including the world's first sewage system, which carried waste away from the cities through a network of covered drains. Every house had a small courtyard with a well for collecting rainwater, which was then piped into the house for drinking and cleaning. The Great Bath at Mohenjo-daro was once thought to be a ritual bath, but is now believed to have been used for public bathing and cleaning. It was likely connected to a network of public bathrooms. Their impressive urban planning and architecture suggests that the civilization had a strong central authority, possibly a centralized government, which may have been a theocracy ruled by a council of priests. However, we don't have much evidence for this theory because the Indus people did not leave behind any written records or much in the way of figurative art. What we do know is that they kept detailed records of their trade. The Indus traded extensively with Mesopotamia. Goods like precious metals, jewelry, ivory, and textiles were sent to cities like Mohenjo-daro and Harappa from as far away as modern Afghanistan and Iran. In return, the Indus sent crafts and raw materials like cotton to Mesopotamia. Their most famous export, however, was a strange blue pottery that's now called Indus seals. These small figurines are decorated with abstract patterns and may have been used as religious amulets or symbols of authority. It's important to remember that while the Indus were certainly advanced, they were not the only civilization in South Asia at the time. They lived alongside other cultures, such as the Vedic people, who would later become the dominant culture in the region. The Vedic people were a pastoral society who lived by herding their cattle across the vast open spaces of the Punjab. As such, they had very little use for cities or urban planning. Over time, the Vedic people gradually absorbed the Indus people and their culture. But just why the Indus people suddenly disappeared is a mystery that has baffled archaeologists for decades. There is evidence that both Mohenjo-daro and Harappa were abandoned around 1900 BCE, just as the civilization entered what would later be called the Bronze Age. Some scholars believe that a devastating flood caused by a massive earthquake along the Makran coastline could have led to the downfall of the civilization. Others believe that it was the result of prolonged drought that made the region's rivers and farmlands dry. Still others believe that outside invaders from Central Asia destroyed the civilization. Today, very little remains of the great cities of the Indus Valley Civilization. Looters have stripped most of them of their treasures, and the rest have been lost to time and erosion. What will be lost forever are the countless stories of the millions of people who once called these places home. We may never know who they were or where they went, but we can still marvel at the incredible things that they built. If you want to learn more about the Indus Valley Civilization, check out the resources in the description below.